Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to try and get inside the mind of one of the most talked about and, let's be honest, controversial figures of our time, Elon Musk. We're going to push past the headlines and really try to unpack his ambitious and sometimes pretty startling vision for the future of humanity.
Okay, let's just dive right in with a prediction that really stops you in your tracks. In a recent wide-ranging conversation, this is what Elon Musk said. Now think about that for a second. The idea that work, as we know it, could just become obsolete. In our lifetimes? How on earth could that even happen?
Well, to even begin to wrap your head around a world without work, you have to grasp this one core idea that seems to connect everything Musk builds. And that idea is the expansion of consciousness. It sounds a little out there, I know, but it's like the single thread that ties together all of his views on social media, on AI, money, you name it, even on the nature of reality itself. So our journey into all this actually begins with something a lot of us use every single day, social media. We're going to look at his vision for the platform he calls X, not just as another company, but as a tool for all of humanity. See, Musk's goal for X is way, way bigger than just sharing posts and videos. He really sees it as this huge project to build a single, shared human consciousness. Think of it like a global town square for our entire species. It's a massive idea. And he's building specific features that are designed to break down the barriers between us. You know, things like automatic translation. That isn't just for convenience. The whole point is to try and merge different language groups into one massive global conversation. The goal is to let humanity's ideas flow more freely than they ever have before. Which brings up a pretty basic question. What's the point? For Musk, it all comes down to one word: scale. He uses this analogy, right? A single person can't build a spaceship. No way. But a whole collection of humans working together? They absolutely can. So following that same logic, what could happen if you connect the consciousness of billions of people? You could unlock achievements we can't even imagine today.
All right, so let's see how this whole idea of a collective consciousness connects back to that radical prediction we started with. This is where the future starts to get really strange and really interesting.
He really believes that in less than 2 decades, and he even says, people can play this back later to check on him, the fundamental nature of our lives is just going to change forever. Work will no longer be a requirement for survival.
That is a fundamental shift. Work goes from something you have to do to something you choose to do for fulfillment. Musk compares it to gardening. Some people do it because they enjoy it, not because they actually have to grow their own food to survive. Now, he does admit this would create a whole new challenge, a crisis of meaning. If our jobs don't define us, what will?
So what's the engine driving all this change? It's technology. Musk foresees a future where AI and robotics create such a massive abundance of goods and services that the whole concept of scarcity just gets eliminated. He calls this a future of universal high income, where anyone can have basically anything they can imagine.
And that, of course, leads to the next logical question. If work is optional and you can have pretty much anything you want, what happens to money?
In a future like that, money as we know it simply loses its purpose. Musk describes money as basically just an information system, a database for allocating labor. But if robots and AI are doing all the work, well, that whole system just becomes obsolete. You don't need it anymore. So if money disappears, what could possibly replace it? Musk argues the only true currency is based in physics: energy. Think about it. You can't just pass a law to create more energy. It has to be harnessed. To him, that is the only fundamental measure of value left. So you can see how this line of thinking just keeps pushing the boundaries of economics and society until it ultimately leads to the most abstract and kind of mind-bending place of all, questioning the very nature of our reality. Musk has said before that he thinks the probability we're living in a simulation is pretty high. And yeah, it's a wild idea, but his reasoning is actually based on a pretty simple technological trend we can all see happening. Just think about the progress of video games. 50 years ago, we had Pong, 2 rectangles and a dot. Today, we have these photorealistic worlds. If that trend keeps going, pretty soon we'll be able to create simulations that are completely indistinguishable from reality. So if there are billions of those simulations running, what are the odds that we just so happen to be in the one single original base reality? He even suggests this idea of a kind of Darwinian evolution for simulations. We tend to shut down the boring ones, right? So the simulations that are most likely to survive and keep running are the most interesting ones, which kind of implies that our reality is probably one of the more interesting ones out there.
And this brings us right back full circle. The ultimate goal of expanding consciousness, whether it's through a global town square or by probing the nature of our reality, is to get better at asking questions. Musk sees the universe as an answer, but the problem is we don't yet know what the question is.
So with all of this cosmic, abstract thinking, how do we bring it all back down to Earth? How does any of this apply to us? Well, Musk offers a simple but really powerful guiding principle for anyone wanting to make their mark. This is his core piece of advice. It doesn't matter if you're building a company or just navigating your own career. The goal should always be to be a net contributor to society. True success, whether that's financial or something else, isn't something you pursue directly. It's a consequence. It comes from creating genuine value for other people by providing useful products and services. And in a future where we might be searching for meaning beyond our jobs, this idea becomes more vital than ever. And this is really the final takeaway from Musk's entire vision. From a collective consciousness to a world without work, it all seems to boil down to one powerful challenge. In a future where you don't have to work, the defining question of your life won't be what do you do for a living, but rather what value will you choose to create?